5.
Good evening all, and welcome to tonight's Supporting the Local Economy Policy Committee. It's obviously been quite a few months since we had our last meeting, and things have drastically changed. We are living in unprecedented times, and therefore it is pertinent that we ensure that we focus on the local economy tonight and ensure we make sure that the council and partners are supported and are able to do as much as we can to support our local businesses. And so with that, we'll go straight into the agenda. So apologies for absence, Kirsten.
Hello, I've not received any apologies.
And code of conduct, any declarations of interest, members? On the basis that no one's unmuted themselves, I'll take that as not needing a roll call. Item 3, to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any issues with the meetings or like to propose and second the minutes? If there's no, Tony?
Move the minutes, Chair.
Fantastic. I think we'll take that as all in favour, unless Kirsten, we need to do a vote on that or a roll call. I'll take a shake of the head on that. No, happy days. Okay, so we'll move straight into it. So we've got two fantastic items tonight. It is Brand Warrington, which is going to be led by Harriet Roberts, who was the interim town centre manager for Warrington Business Improvement District. Been doing some incredible work again in these unprecedented times, certainly relating to the town centre and making sure that those businesses from retail to hospitality and the rest have been able to get through this difficult time, and equally ensure that the town centre is somewhere safe, secure, but indeed somewhere that people can come and ensure that we keep our local economy thriving. We also have Jackie Empson from the Business Exchange, who's going to be going through how the council's WebEx and Business Exchange has been continuing to network and ensure that local businesses can thrive through networking together and doing business with one another, again on a more online basis than before. So we'll move straight into Brand Warrington, item 7, with Harriet Roberts, who's joining us via phone. And Harriet, you may have some notes with you. I know you may not be able to see the slides in front, so if you can give us any indication of when you want the slides to go through. If not, we'll leave that to Steve Parks to judge when to move forward next.
Thanks, Tom. I haven't provided any slides. I can watch online as well. I can see what's happening. So a very quick rewind before COVID. Warrington Bid entered its second year of a 5-year term in August last year, August 2019, and we were well on with our business plan before the lockdown in March. We had made some small significant wins in terms of developing the visual narrative for the destination marketing with the Warrington happening branding. We'd invested in some business crime solutions like the knife arches, schemes to reduce the cost of the radio link for businesses. We had set up a group to look at investing in additional CCTV cameras, and we had sported the big ice rink installation at Golden Square at Christmas. We'd also been developing some good multi-stakeholder working groups looking at themes like community cleanups around the grot spots in the town centre, working with Ian Brackenbury and the team. And we also had a task force in place looking at the twilight economy with a cross-sector of public and private and third sector individuals on that group. So all that was underway before COVID. And when the lockdown came, we had to put our business planning on hold, on pause, but we were there for our members to listen to their needs, to provide one-to-one support, point them in the right direction for information, whether that was about grant funding and financial support or safety information, and just generally guidelines about how to carry out their risk assessments and reopen in a COVID secure way. So during each phase of the process, as the situation developed through the crisis, that was the pre-recovery and the recovery phases, we were providing a two-way flow of information as we went through each phase, with the retail reopening, then the hospitality reopening, on an individual basis and on a sector by sector basis, in close communication with the council's team and the police and so on. And during that time, this was underpinned by the bid leading a 10-week communications strategy, which involved a total rewrite of the destination website, the videography and a social media campaign with a completely new narrative based on the back to message, which we had based on consumer research, tapping into where the hearts and minds of the community were at that particular point in the middle of lockdown, which told us that localness, that family, that community spirit of Warrington were more important than ever. So being kind, respecting others and all that, that was right the way through everything we did in our communications, right down to the signage as well. So supported by Councillor Jennings, we were also able to contribute as a collective to the recovery strategy in the town centre, helping to bring key stakeholders around the table and working closely with the council's leadership team throughout, meeting sometimes on a daily basis during that rapidly changing scenario and set of circumstances. And it was that collaboration and that communication resulted in some really good wins. So we've got some strong analytics in terms of social media engagement. We've got a brand new Warrington-based team of creatives from 4 different local agencies who are now working together with us as a consortium on that destination messages. And the result was we were able to deliver some good footfall over the summer. Footfall recovery was doing really well until the recent rise in cases. It was at one point almost at what it was the same time last year before COVID at its peak in the summer. Have to say a lot of that was down to the opening of the new Warrington market, which was looked forward to, a tremendous new asset to the town. We also benefited from some great weather as well. And during that whole summer period, we just continued to work closely with the team at the council, at the market there, and also Golden Square in terms of shaping a shared narrative, targeted advertising, a really close strategy really. Also, of course, on top of that, we had the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, which is a huge boost to the local hospitality trade. The botanist in Times Square, for example, described it as absolutely magnificent and really helped in that recovery process. So as we go forward now, we are continuing to respond to the present climate, changing restrictions and public perceptions, which are going to shape where that messaging and destination marketing goes in the next crucial couple of months as we move into the key retail hospitality season of Christmas and into the first few months of the new year. But very much that continued sense of togetherness, working as a community, being there for the most vulnerable, supporting each other, shopping locally, and most importantly, making things safer in order that people continue to feel confident and feel strong. Finally, as we go into the third term, I've been working as an interim part-time consultant for the bid. You may be aware that the bid now has got a full-time bid manager. That is Nick White. Some of you may know him as a former town centre manager in Warrington from Appleton Thorn, experience with Chester bid and with Southport bid. I feel it's a really positive move in terms of the experience he brings and knowledge of the town centre. My role has changed, supported by funding from reopening of the High Street Safely Fund. I now lead a 6-month project which will be focused on ongoing communications and safety messaging to continue to support business sustainability and consumer confidence in the months ahead. Thanks, Tom.
Fantastic, Harriet. I'll come on to comments and questions shortly. Just want to refresh for anyone who's reminding that the Business Improvement District was a ballot taken 2 years ago, the one in favour of setting a board up whereby businesses within the remit of the town centre all pay a levy, and that then is pooled and is managed by a business-led board of those levy payers. So it's got everyone from Ian Cox in Golden Square to Emma Hutchinson from Live Wire and Culture Warrington. It's also got presence by third sector and equally the police as well. And it's a really collaborative group of people, and certainly a board that has shown real leadership and cooperation in getting retail and certainly hospitality reopen over this time, and has got an exciting future for the next years that it's live. So I'll run down the participation list that I have here to members now for comments or questions, and the first one on my list is Councillor Bates.
Nothing to add yet, Chair, nothing to add, but great work by the sounds of it.
Thanks, Ryan. Bob?
Like Councillor Bates, great work, and I think that marketing the town centre was always important and is going to be important in the future. We're now hitting a much more serious challenge because of the current close down, effectively. So perhaps now isn't the time to comment on the Cineworld announcement, but I hope that at some stage this evening we will get some commentary on that and the implications and how we recover from it. Thank you, Chair.
No problem, Bob. I think certainly the point around marketing the town centre, I think what's been really incredible to see from the Business Improvement District is the ability to procure 4 individual and independent businesses all to work together. Some who may not have done it ever previously, but be in a position where they've been able to produce a brand, which is We Are Warrington, and certainly through all manners of software and analytics, be able to target it to the right people, to bring those who may not be in other local lockdowns into the town centre, to ensure that we're keeping the town centre safe in terms of who we promote to, making sure that people are not travelling who may obviously be in areas where we've seen spikes. And that's, I think, what has been particularly impressive, and just the numbers alone, particularly in terms of the footfall of the market, but equally some of those analytics that I'm sure if we were in a chamber dynamic or had slides, we'd be able to showcase, and I'm sure we can follow up some of that information from the work that's been done digitally to really ensure that, you know, it's always a comment that I hear from businesses in the town centre long years back, ultimately, let alone months, is that a lot of people in the south don't come into the town centre, they prefer to go to Trafford and elsewhere. And I think the numbers that the digital team has been working with on behalf of the bid can really dispute that now and show that that mindset has changed, and people south of the Ship Canal do see the town centre as an attractive place to go, even through COVID and hopefully beyond. Diana Friend, Councillor Friend, sorry. Anything to add, or any comments or questions?
Just how positive it is, and it's good to hear something positive at the moment. Yeah, and it looks really impressive. I'm suitably impressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Councillor Williams?
Just to reiterate what's been said, obviously the great challenges these days, and I think those challenges are being met full on, and we'll see a great response.
Thanks, Tony. Councillor Hannon, any comments to add? Okay, we might come back to Councillor Hannon. Thanks, Councillor Hannon. Well, we've no further questions or comments, Harriet, we'll let you go. I just want to reiterate my personal thanks again to all the work from yourselves and Nick and the team at the bid for everything they've done, not least in the last 2 years, but certainly in the last 6 months.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Tom. It's a great town to be working in.
Thanks, Harriet. Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is item 9 on the business exchange, which will be led by Jackie Empson again via phone call.
I think I'm on a call and I'm on the screen, so I don't know which is going to work. I'm Jackie Empson and I launched the Business Exchange in March 2018 with Warrington and Co. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
We can, Jackie, yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
I'm behind on the screen. So I launched the Business Exchange in March 2018 with Warrington and Co. And it was going really well. We had lots of events organised. We had an annual conference. We had Women in Business. We had a professional forum that were all really well attended. And we were getting up to close to 200 Business Exchange members. Then when COVID hit, we had to quickly learn how to use Zoom and put everything online. Working closely with all of the other networking groups as well, because they all had to go on Zoom. We all had to learn together and just decide which was the best way forward. During this time, the members, we've all got a lot closer because we all needed support, we all needed help, and people were phoning me asking how to use Zoom and how to get on, and with different presentations that they could do. So I now do a weekly Business Exchange phone call with all the members, and each week I have a presentation from one of the members, which ranges from mental health to HR to accountancy to business technology, and it's just helping all of the members through these really challenging times. I did try and organise an event on the 24th of September, just for 30 of us to get together, when we were just trying to dip our toes in the water to do face-to-face networking again. But we cancelled that as local numbers seemed to be increasing, and then the local lockdown came in. So we're still on Zoom. I also, to help me get more members for the Business Exchange, I go on to all of the other networking groups. I go on to their meetings, and that's my way of meeting new members. Until we see what happens with COVID, I'm reluctant to do any of the face-to-face networking, so we'll be doing it online, and I'm just working closely with the members. Even though we've lost a few due to people being furloughed, businesses closing, we're up to about 135, and I'm in regular contact with them all the time. So hopefully, by the end of the year, we can see what happens with COVID, but we'll just work closely with everyone. And that's what we've been doing.
Thank you, Jackie. That's a really informal overview of the work spent in the last couple of months. And I think what's incredible is as you say, the 135 cohort, they're in regular contact. And I think it's so important, particularly as being self-employed myself, is that business can quite often be quite isolating, and certainly in these times now even more so. And so having that regular contact with one another and hopefully being able to do business with one another well is really important. And so it really pays tribute to the crucial work that you're doing within the Business Exchange. Members, I'll do a quick roll call again if there's any comments or queries relating to the Business Exchange. Should say that obviously it's got a 2-year legacy, so if there's any questions around its work prior and different projects prior to COVID, please do ask. So we'll start with Councillor Bate.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Again, you know, really good work going on in very difficult circumstances. I'm glad, like the rest of us, you've survived the transition to online alternatives to face-to-face meetings. I'm sure we all look forward to those moments in the future where we can actually sit in the same room and chat face-to-face. But no, really good to hear that networking is going well, and hopefully you can work together to get through these tricky times. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Bob?
I'd like to welcome and commend what the Business Exchange is achieving. I think a means for businesses to talk to each other had gone downhill in Warrington. Businesses weren't talking to each other in a way that they needed to, and it needed a new initiative and a bit of warmth behind it in order for it to happen. I'm very grateful to the Business Exchange for having achieved that and maintaining that momentum through this difficult time. So very encouraging. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Bob. Councillor Friend?
I was just concerned about numbers. Are these dropping considerably, or are you managing to keep the numbers up? Because I know personally so many people are getting their lives changed for various reasons, and it's very tough times. It can't be easy if you're losing people. How you manage those conversations as well?
Well, what we did with some people, I gave them some extra time. So when they were coming to the end of their membership, then I gave them an extra month, and then we charged them the month after, just to make up for some of the lost time that they'd had during lockdowns. Some of them I can't save because the business has gone. Some of them are furloughed, so hopefully when they come back, or they've got staff furloughed, so hopefully when the business is up and running again, they will join. But I'm always in contact with them, and I'm really active on social media. So everyone knows what the Business Exchange is doing, and I just don't want people to forget that we're here. So I just have to keep it going, and when they're ready, then they'll come back to us.
That's great. That is absolutely fantastic. There's something so positive happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, really good point, Diana, and I think it's really crucial that we have that flexibility in the Business Exchange to allow, for during turbulent times, those businesses to be able to ease up their cash flow and certainly be able to still gain some of the benefits and hopefully rejoin us for full benefits that in the year when they may be on a more solid platform. Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Chairman. I've been on this committee now for a number of years, and there was always an issue where new businesses did not know what was going on in the town. Established businesses had their networks, and I think the Business Exchange is vital to encouraging new businesses to take part in the network of businesses around Warrington, and congratulating everyone involved.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think certainly just the photos alone on the slide there, you can see the vast opportunities that the Business Exchange gives its members, from property review right round to women's only groups, and likewise just more social events, which probably haven't been seen in the town for quite a while. And say hopefully that the attendance will continue online until we can meet face to face and get those events set up again. So we've now got Councillor Hannon.
Yep.
Tom, you're on mute.
There we go. It's going to happen once. Apologies all. Okay, so I think Councillor Hannon, anything to add or any queries? Okay. Well, with that, we'll say thanks again to Jackie and for all the work she's doing at the Business Exchange, and really hope that it goes on to further strengths in the coming months.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Bye.
Okay, so item 4, I believe, is our next on the agenda, and hopefully on the slides as well, which is our strategic transport initiatives. David Boyer, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Obviously, members have had a summary paper, so I won't go through that in detail, other than if you just allow me maybe just to look at a few highlights. members will be aware that we're continuing to do quite a lot of work around Amiga as far as the various phases to support the housing and the other construction work that's actually going on the old Amiga site. They paused slightly during lockdown. A number of the contractors, as it was just described, other businesses furloughed staff, but all those works are back underway now and are making good progress. And the various details are contained in your paper. One project which we were really pleased to say we were able to maintain progress on during the last 6 months is Centre Park Link, and the new bridge across the River Mersey is now complete, and you can drive over that. The scheme is still programmed to be finished very early next year, about January. And again, I think there was some reaction to that from the public and others because they were concerned that work was continuing. But just to reassure members, everything was in compliance with all regulations, both issued by the government and the construction industry. And I am pleased we've managed to maintain progress there. It's a vital link. And not only will that be delivered on time, it's going to be delivered to budget. Obviously, if things have been delayed, that would have been a pressure. So there is a photograph in the pack there, but if you go up Chester New Road at the moment, that's very, very visible. Western Link, obviously, it's a major project for the town. And again, what's set out in there is progress that's been made since the committee last met. We've got a design partner now appointed, working alongside ourselves and Balfour Beatty. We're doing all the various ecological, all the other sort of pre-design work, etc. And that is working through now to a planning application that is likely to be in May, June of next year. We are going to be doing some consultation in November. As part of that project. That's likely to be substantially virtual, although we are trying to do some face-to-face if we can, but obviously with the changing picture all the time with COVID regulations, that can be quite challenging. Also, what's set out in the paper is strategic cycle improvements, and that's building on a lot of great work which we as an authority have done over the last 4 or 5 years. In particular, the Amiga to Burton Wood accessibility improvements is a key project, and no doubt members will realise that Councillor O'Neill was very pleased that was progressing, and I'm only too sorry he's not here to see that completed. But it's a major piece of work, and I think massively improved connectivity, sustainable connection links between Amiga and Burton Wood. And there's other projects planned that will be starting in the new year, improvements along Chester Road and also upgrades on the Trans-Pennine Trail. We're also progressing, because it's not just the projects that we've got on the ground which we've constructed. Like we as an authority in the last 5 or 6 years have constructed now in the order of £110 million worth of infrastructure works, which is the biggest programme of works that the town has seen since the Newtown days. But it's also important that we're planning for the future, and a lot of this work was set out in the Local Transport Plan 4. And there's various studies, really important studies underway. The first and last mile, which is looking at that first and last mile into the town centre. That's particularly looking to improve sustainable links, both walking, cycling, and also public transport, and very much fitting into the central plan, the Area 6 plan, and a lot of the good work that came out of that, and a lot of the aspirations within that plan. There's also an important piece of work looking at bus priority and mass transit, and good progress is being made on that. So again, there is some further information there in your pack. We continue. HS2 is obviously continuing. Personally, the first phase is on site down towards London, between London and Birmingham. Phase 2, phase 2B, which we would be impacted on. We remain in our position, as I've said many times at this committee. We remain strongly opposed to the Goulburn link, supportive of HS2, but very much want that to come through the centre of Warrington. And alongside that as well, very much working at the moment with Transport for the North, to look at the Northern Powerhouse rail options. And again, we're very keen that those options include a route through Warrington that will interchange at Banquay. That would be a massive improvement on Banquay Station, and it will become a major hub, a major interchange. So that's a very brief summary, Councillor Jennings. As ever, more than happy to take any questions.
Thanks, David, and great that Councillor Gaff Buckley's just joined us as well. Good to have you on board. Can I just remind you just to mute your microphone just while we're on until you wish to speak. Thanks, Gaff.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll take that now to comments and questions. I'll go through the list again. So Councillor Bate first.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, David, I've got 3 questions for you, mate. First one, with regards to the Centre Park link, just what exactly will be going on in terms of ongoing monitoring of the impact on Gainsborough Road? Because having spoken to quite a few residents over the past 6-8 months for various reasons, that was obviously a big concern for them. Is that going to be closely monitored after the opening of the bridge to make sure that they aren't unduly impacted by their road becoming more of a kind of a busier traffic route?
It is, Councillor. That's obviously been a major concern of residents on Gainsborough Road throughout the course of the project. We've also progressing an environmental traffic calming scheme that hopefully will discourage any inappropriate traffic using that route. And again, as part of that scheme, we would do full monitoring both before, like obviously we've got before traffic information, and certainly after. So yes, that will be done.
Thank you. Second one, just to confirm, I think I asked this question last time, and I'm not entirely convinced my geography's got any better, which is quite worrying given my day job. But the Trans-Pennine Trail upgrade, that's essentially between the Stockton Heath and the Latchford swing bridges. Is that correct?
It is, Councillor Bate. Yeah. And there's a report being drafted at the moment. I think it's due to go to Cabinet in December from memory.
Thank you. Final one is more of a kind of a speculative question. If you look at the canal towpath, the Bridgewater Canal towpath, which was obviously hugely used over the kind of the peak of lockdown, as it were. For those of us who've travelled along the Bridgewater Canal beyond Warrington's borough boundaries, we become very, very quickly aware that we are the poor relation compared to certainly going through Halton and going through Trafford. The quality, the width, the surface, the clear segregation for walking and cycling. Could you offer any reason for why we are such a poor relation? And are there any conversations between the Borough Council and the Bridgewater Canal Company for how we might actually get a better upgrade and a better deal for Warrington?
Yeah, it's a good question, that, Councillor Blake. Why are we the poor neighbour in that respect? I think it's difficult to answer. I think it's just the way things have worked out. Like there are proposals now, and we've been doing some work with with the Bridgewater Canal. I suppose it's ultimately with Peel. To actually bring forward some improvements. Like I think one of the worst sections is out towards Walton, and I think one of the issues has been there historically is some issues from above and water and that's streamed down the embankment. We've put our own scheme in now that stop that. So there are proposals now going forward. What I'll have to do, I'll have to get it's a guy called John Nichol who's leading on that for me. What I'll do, if you don't mind just doing that slightly offline, I'll get details of that, and I can copy that to yourself and other any members that would be interested.
Yep, that'd be much appreciated. And any extra detail on the Gainsborough Road scheme, traffic management, will be really appreciated as well. So thank you. Thanks for that, David. No, thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Councillor Buckley, you're next on my list if you've got any comments or questions.
No, because basically because of all the ICT problems, I didn't hear it. So
apologies.
Because we've been going back and forth. So that's why I was saying, because even the phone, even the phone cut. So basically I couldn't hear it, couldn't see it and what have you. So now I'm back into the meeting. I hopefully will make some comments in the next sections.
Well, glad we've got
If there's anything after the meeting, just let me know and I'll get back to you.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you.
Okay, next on my list is Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I'm afraid like Ryan, 3 questions. Well, the first one, just to follow on to Ryan's question on the Bridgewater Canal path. Right through lockdown and recently, the popularity of the path alongside the Bridgewater Canal of the towpath has been enormous, as well as there being a lot of canal traffic. One thing which has been a consistent complaint is the conflict between cyclists and walkers along that section. Now, the Bridgewater Canal Company say, well, our signs say no cycling, so that's the end of it. They don't enforce it, we can't enforce it, and actually I'm not at all sure that it would be reasonable. So can we do anything to try to improve relationships between cyclists and walkers on the Bridgewater Canal side? I had the good fortune to walk part of the Wirral Way recently, and I must say I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because there was a wide, well-paved footpath right the way through on the Wirral Way with very big signs saying cyclists please dismount or please give way to pedestrians. And that strikes me as being a good way of managing a shared resource like that. So can we do something about particularly the section from the Trafford boundary through to Knutsford Road, so that's the Lim section and the Thelwall sections of the Bridgewater Canal.
Yeah, like to be honest, I wish at times I had a magic wand to sort some of those relationships. Like I think in all due fairness, the vast majority of pedestrians and cyclists are considerate. Yeah. As ever in life, it's a small minority that tend to be the problem. But like obviously, as yourself and in particular Councillor Bates said, like that it is the responsibility of filling that's not us ducking it. You know, it is a very important link. It's well used. Like it's interesting. You mentioned the Wirral Way. I do know that route myself, and I suppose one of the things they've got though, which we necessarily haven't got, they've got more space sometimes, and that allows you to do more. But certainly, I'm happy to take that away as a specific issue. You know, I've actually taken up an officer sort of advisory position on the sort of Bridgewater group now. Unfortunately, I went to my first meeting just before lockdown and there hasn't been any during, so I'm more than happy to use that office to take it forward and have that direct dialogue. And again, what the information I'll provide to Councillor Bates, I'm more than happy to copy into you, Councillor Barr.
I'm grateful for that. Number 2, Western Link coming to planning sometime in the middle of next year. As I understand it, the Western Link business plan is critically dependent on Port Warrington and is the enabling feature for Port Warrington. Now, given the volume of traffic through Port Warrington and the volume of container traffic up and down the canal is nowhere near what Peel Ports was suggesting 3 or 4 years ago, is this just a 3 or 4 year delay in their massive plans, or actually does this change the plan completely and does it undermine the argument for the Western Link?
I won't necessarily deal with any sort of local plan issues, Councillor Barr. I wasn't quite clear as that one part of it. I'll deal with the transportation side if that's needed. Maybe someone else could answer. Like at the end of the day, I think it's one of the misconceptions about the Western Link. You know, the Western Link has been designed to serve a number of purposes. You know, a key one is to allow the removal of quite a lot of traffic from the town centre. You know, I mentioned in the report or in the update and in the summary things like the first and last mile and the desire to do something more sustainable in the town centre. You know, by taking away that traffic, you know, and it's just a local plan comment, you know, that will allow us to get more units into the town centre. So, you know, the Western Link had a number of objectives, like the actual. Obviously, building the Western Link would provide an access to to Port Warrington, but that was not a fundamental part of the outline business case. You know, that's there for all to read that was submitted to government. You know, at the time, the Western Link business case was based on the current core strategy, on the current local plan, and that's what it's based on, and that's what went into it.
That's very helpful, thank you. And the final question, and again, it's about getting traffic out of the town centre. We very much look forward to the bus priority mass transit study, and we welcome the extra £1 million that's come up now, and the previous, I think, was it 4 or 5 million for the electric bus depot. However, 1 million or even 5 million is an absolute drop in the ocean to the cost of replacing a bus fleet with an electric bus fleet, and then also in the revenue costs of keeping the fares affordable in order to get people to mode shift from cars onto public transport. Will future funding possibilities be part of the mass transit study, or is it simply about the practicalities of particular vehicle types?
No, it's a fundamental review of everything. As I've said before at this committee, Councillor Barr, one of the big problems we have in Warrington, say compared to Merseyside or Manchester, is they historically, given where they've come from, as far as old county council Met areas, they have a constant revenue source of funding that's a precept on the council tax. You know, we don't have that. So one of the pressures areas like ourselves have had, unitaries, small unitaries, is that we don't have that revenue funding. So a key part of that mass transit study will be to try to determine how, it's a true saying at times, it's capital rich, revenue poor. Yeah. You've got to get that revenue support to not only support your services, you know, both in terms of that the continue keeping up the quality, but also, as you say, around fares, although around fares is very difficult. You know, government legislation is very tight on that, and what you can do as far as cross subsidisation. Like obviously public transport at the moment across the country is not in a good place. You know, in effect, public transport, both bus and rail, is in effect being completely bailed out by central government. You know, so I think there are, you know, some challenging times to come. You know, hopefully as we get through that over the next 6 to 12 months, those pressures will abate, but they are massive pressures at the moment. But you know, absolutely, it will look at everything. Like, obviously, we have got a bid in at the moment to become the first all-electric bus town. And as part of that, if we're successful and get a little bit frustrated because we keep getting told a decision is going to be made, and that keeps getting put back, but staying positive on that, because it was an excellent bid that we put in, that would attract with it capital funding in order to what you've absolute salient point you've just made. It would be very expensive to replace the bus fleet, and that's why it's vital that we're successful in that bid in order to procure that funding.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Friend, any comments or queries?
Not at this stage, no.
Thanks. Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Chair. No questions, but I'd like to thank David and his team for the regular briefings and updates of what's going on, particularly in Great Sankey. I think we know exactly what's going on in our town, and I just wanted to comment that the people of Warrington can see that this council is proactive in making Warrington an accessible place, and the infrastructure goes ahead. Active travel in my area is being promoted, and the cycleways are going in. Some people are saying that it's disruption, but it's not disruption. It's further evidence that we, as a council, are determined that people can get around Warrington in a safe and I would say an active way. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Tony, and not just proactive, but I think forward thinking as well, particularly in relation to the electric bus bids. You know, we're not just thinking in years, but decades ahead in terms of what Warrington's going to be and how accessible it can be in terms of getting from A to B in Warrington and out and in. OK, so we've now got Tony Williams, Councillor Hannon. Any comments or queries?
You're mute, Tom. Sorry, Councillor Jennings, sorry.
No, don't worry, that's fairly embarrassing. Okay, so well, listen, Dave, thank you for that report and comprehensive responses there as well. Unless there's anything more to add, we'll move on to item 8. Funding, I believe, is next on our slides. Oh, my apologies. We've got development and regen. Over to you, John, for this.
Okay, thank you. I assume you can hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. There is a summary update in your pack, so I'll quickly take you through that. But I will skip over Centre Park and Western Link as they've already been covered. So Times Square is now complete, operational, with I think about 98% of the snags cleared. Leisure Block is being used with Botanist back in. Cineworld was back in until the announcement over the weekend that they will be shutting their units, and we're yet to see what the impact will be of that on the scheme. We do, however, even since lockdown, had significant interest in the remaining units. So we have the Gravity, who will open October, November time, or certainly towards the middle of November, I think. And we also have Heavenly Desserts, who will be opening in Dolman's Lane, and we have 2 more of the units in advanced legal discussions. So despite the impact of COVID on schemes such as Times Square, I think the very strong performance of the market, the strong performance of Botanist pre-lockdown, and welcoming Gravity to the scheme has really prompted interest for people to take up space in there. So difficult with Cineworld. We're yet to see really what will happen with it, but I remain optimistic with it because it turns out to be a very strong and multifaceted scheme, which I think in this market is exactly what we need. Bus depot, we've just touched on the all-electric bus fleet bid that we're still waiting to hear from. So despite that, if it comes along, great asset to the town. If not, we're still planning on moving the bus depot from its current location up to Dalham Lane. The design for that is now at a very advanced stage. We're ready to go to tender for it. We've just had a slight design review to make sure that if the electric bus fleet bid is successful, we could accommodate on the site and with the design, and that's been confirmed. And we're now currently in negotiations with Warrington's own buses as to how that goes forward contractually and commercially. Centre Park and Western Link I will skip. Garden Suburb, we'd undertaken a significant amount of work on Garden Suburb as a real key component of the local plan. We weren't, however, able to get assurance from Homes England that we would have sufficient surety of funding that it would stand up to examination in public. So we weren't able to put that forward. We are, however, continuing to talk to Homes England, who now have potential access to different funding pots to see how we can bring Garden Suburb forward, possibly in a different structure, but certainly still looking at to see how we can bring that forward with them. Stadium Quarter, both Showman families have now relocated, and we are waiting with bated breath to see the youth zone on site, which is the where the Showmen were living before, together with some of the car park. If you're familiar with the area, High Street Group did have some shutdown on the John Street apartments during lockdown. They're now back on site and are pushing hard to get those completed and opened. Road widening scheme will come forward presently. That now has planning permission, and we've also seen Iliad bring forward a scheme for the large surface car park that they own next to the base and the UTC. Cabinet Works, We've not done anything with that during lockdown. It wasn't really the time for doing that, but we're now starting to see a bit more interested in that. So we really need to make an internal decision as to whether it's something that we let the market bring forward or whether it's something we'd like to bring forward ourselves. Local housing companies, or local housing company, development company in this case, 2 sites now have planning. I believe we are now in contract with a contractor to start building them, so they should be on site in 4 to 6 weeks. There is some detail there about some of the funding for it, but we now have fully viable schemes for that, which is most welcome. And we are also starting to look at the next pipeline of sites. So there's 4 further sites in the borough we're looking at in order to bring forward housing schemes, but also policy compliant housing schemes, ones that bring forward the requisite amount of affordable housing with them. Warrington Means Business is now complete, so I'll skip that. Bewsey and Dalham Community Hub, they did manage to keep going through lockdown remarkably. I think fortuitously they'd ordered all their materials, they got a well-controlled site, they were able to distance all the way through lockdown, so they didn't lose as much time as I was expecting. So we're still looking at a November completion. When we actually open will be really a question, an operational question, but we're really looking for November completion on that. Great Sankey Hub complete, and we're just trying to close out the final account with the contractor now. Town centre supplementary planning document is sort of the next major step in the series of documents we've put together. Town centre master plan, 3D master plan, supplementary planning document will really start to help people understand what we want to see within those schemes in detail in the town centre. Last but certainly by no means least, Bewsey and Dalham Resi, behind Bewsey and Dalham Hub, we're now looking to bring forward a residential development over 55s that works or tries to work hand in glove with the hub. So a lot of the lessons we learned from Great Sankey Hub in terms of an ageing population, particularly around dementia-friendly design, are now being brought into the hub and also into that residential development. So that is one I'm particularly excited about, as the architect and Sport England are looking at that as a bit of a case study of how you do this in the UK. So that's really quite an exciting development. So that's all I was going to say. Tom, sorry, Councillor Jennings.
It's all right, go on. No, thank you, and I certainly want to echo the comments around the Bewsey and Dalham Hub and certainly the residential development. We had a tour just a few weeks back with Whitford and Brown, and it is absolutely fantastic and certainly really awe-inspiring in terms of the pace of work they've been able to do safely during the last couple of months to keep it on track, and certainly seeing the developments come forward for that residential. It's going to be something that hopefully is just a national case study, which will mean that not only it will benefit Warrington but certainly wider regions and the wider country, but started in Warrington. Members, comments and questions. We'll go through the list again. Councillor Bate.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to kind of echo Councillor Williams' response to the previous item, it's really kind of impressive and quite humbling to see the amount of work which has been going on through the past 6 months in quite trying circumstances. So thanks to John and all his colleagues who put a huge amount in to making sure that the town remains successful and kind of builds for the future. The only point I would make, as I've made before, Chair, is I hope that the amount of investment of time and resource into the garden suburb master planning does not preclude the council from taking a real look again at the local plan and maybe finding a better option for the future, which actually does a better job of challenging some of those social inequalities in the town whilst protecting our green spaces. So I look forward to that, and I hope that we don't kind of haven't tied our hands, and I'm going to be optimistic on that front. But as I say, thanks to John and all his team for everything that they've reported on. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley.
Again, I would just echo that to say thanks to the team. Thank you so much. That it was very interesting. Yeah, no problems.
Councillor Barr.
I'd like to echo what Councillor Bate has said about the garden suburb. I have always objected to the term garden suburb. The term garden suburb is used interchangeably in the local plan at the moment with garden villages. Garden villages as a concept are much more acceptable, particularly if they have a reasonable degree of self-containment. Garden suburb smacks of a large car-driven dormitory, which we still object to very strongly. We hope that the rethink of the local plan will rethink that. I don't think I'm expecting a response from John on that one. A second point, and again, you'll not be surprised, the second point, because it's not something I'm not getting an answer to, and I didn't get an answer to in the full council meeting, but perhaps John might be able to enlighten me. How are we going to decide what are the appropriate heights for buildings in the town centre and in the stadium quarter in particular, and how will the public, councillors and urban design experts' views be introduced into that discussion? And also, John might tell me what he thinks is an appropriate maximum height for buildings in the stadium quarter next to the base.
I think the answer that was received at full council will probably do on that, and we'll move on to Diana Friend.
Oh, I protest, Chair, and I would like my protest to be recorded in the minutes that you have suppressed a perfectly legitimate question, and that is not acceptable, Councillor Jennings.
Well, it's a live recording, so it's obviously going to be minuted. I think re-asking a question at this committee when it's about the local economy committee is out of place, and unbecoming, Bob, when we're talking about businesses trying to get through a difficult time.
Councillor Jennings, an item's been put before us that specifically talks about the application that raised that question at full council. And that is on our papers before us tonight, and John has raised it tonight, and you are suppressing his opportunity to give an answer.
Bob, calm yourself. If John wishes to come back, that's absolutely fine, but I don't think it'd be anything different than what the answer was at full council.
Councillor Jennings, it's Steve Park. I can assist if you would like.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Barr raises an important point. It is a contentious point. It was raised admirably, I think, at the last DMC where the application was deferred. The local plan, as we know, has been postponed for the time being to allow for time for reflection. That has now given the planning policy team sufficient time to prioritise what we call a supplementary planning document. And this is a document that will set the guide for the heights, the scaling, the massing, and to some extent the design of the buildings that will define the town centre of Warrington in particular, and to assist developers, investors, and in particular the DMC when considering applications in the future. At the moment we have a town centre master plan, which has been useful in attracting investment, and it's a tool that John and his colleagues use extensively on a daily basis to articulate the vision for the town centre. However, in planning terms, it does have limited use, and a supplementary planning document does have much greater value in planning policy terms. We expect to be in a position where we're consulting on that to allow input from members, from developers, and of course from office as a member of the public, and we'll be in that position in the first quarter of next year. I hope that answers the question, Chair.
Chair, I'd like to express my thanks to Steve Park. Had I had that response weeks ago, months ago, I would not have got so cross tonight. I'm very grateful to Steve. I quite accept that. Obviously, issues arise out of that, but they can be dealt with elsewhere. So thank you very much indeed, Steve. That's what we've been looking for all along.
Thanks, Bob. We'll move on to Councillor Friend.
In terms of buildings and height, I hope we've no plans to knock down any church steeples, which are probably higher than a lot of apartment blocks. But that aside, I'm concerned with the amount of social housing, so I just look carefully at plans as they come and consider them, even when I'm not on the planning committee. But thank you.
Councillor Williams.
No further comment, Chairman.
Thanks. Councillor Hannan. Any further comments or questions? Okay. Well, with that, thank you again, John, for the agenda item and for the comprehensive report. We'll move on to the local industrial strategy, which will be taken by Steve Park.
Thank you, Chair. We've had some last-minute apologies from Stephen Fitzsimons, so I shall do my best as understudy in taking you through the report. You will remember, I hope, 3 or 4 years ago, the concept of a local industrial strategy was announced with fanfare from government as being the conduit through which the levelling up agenda would be delivered on a national basis. That local industrial strategy process was built on the grand challenges announced by government at the time, which are set out in the report of energy and clean growth and ageing well, artificial intelligence and data, and the future of mobility. The 5 foundations of productivity was also highlighted. In particular, this was picking out the fact that the UK economy was tracking behind its major global competitors in relation to productivity. And in particular, the north of England was struggling to compete on a national basis in the UK due to issues with productivity. Well, those were categorized into those surrounding ideas, people, the business environment, and of course infrastructure, and the place which this committee receives regular updates on. The Cheshire and Warrington Local Enterprise Partnership was identified as part of what they called a second wave at the time, and this was preceding some of the core cities that had submitted their local industrial strategies, and we commenced that process in July of 2018. The outcome of that was that we have a local industrial strategy submitted to government which focused on 3 specific outcomes: one of a more productive economy, linked to the point I made earlier in relation to productivity, a more resilient economy, and events since the production of this industrial strategy has highlighted the need for a more resilient economy, and of course a more inclusive economy, something that we're starting to hear a lot more of now in the narrative of economic strategy across the country. Despite its lauded ambitions as an attempt to level up the economy, that we had a change in Prime Minister, a change in Cabinet, and to a large scale a change in ministerial seats as well. And it had become clear that the current government and Prime Minister doesn't see the local industrial strategy with quite the same appetite as his predecessor, and as a result, although we've submitted the local industrial strategy addressing the points that I've made earlier in that report, it's safe to say that it's not yet seen the light of day. So all I can do at the moment is give you that somewhat disappointing given the effort that was put in to the production of that on a sub-regional basis. However, the process of developing the local industrial strategy was one that required an extensive amount of consultation with the public, but in particular the business community, and that the production of the strategy required quite a strong evidence base based on consultation. And what that did, despite not resulting in a submitted or at least an approved, agreed, signed off strategy from government, it did give us a very rich evidence base across Warrington, but more importantly across Cheshire and Warrington, to put us in a good place when it comes to bidding for invitations to bid for new funding that come from government on an iterative basis. And there'll be later on in the agenda, I'll touch on some of the external funding that we're now involved in Warrington, one of which, of course, is the Towns Fund, or the Towns Deal, which was an invitation in the final quarter of last year to bid for up to £25 million, and I'll come on to that on a future agenda item. Safe to say that the work that was put in Warrington was not wasted in relation to the locality strategy. Despite it not being signed off, it was now being used to bid for multiple sources of funding, which I can come on to later in the agenda in the meeting, Chair. So the recommendation is to note the industrial strategy for what Cheshire and Warrington has been submitted, but not taken forward by government, and disappointing to some extent, but I'll leave it there for any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go down the list again. Councillor Bates.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a comment, really. You know, share Steve and his team's frustration that Westminster has yet again wasted local government time and resource, but it's good to hear that that work hasn't been completely wasted and will be used for other, hopefully, more worthwhile and successful endeavours. So thanks to Steve and all his team who've worked on that. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley.
I've noted the comments and I will bring them up with the MP, Andy Carter.
Thanks, Kath. Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Chair. A very welcome report. I share the concern about local industrial strategy effectively being shelved. What I would ask for is that in any future assessment of Warrington's role within local industrial strategy, we also do need a levelling up agenda within Warrington itself. I think our industrial and our skills strategies have to be a key part of that. It's a real shame that a town which is as an effective a part of the industrial scene across North Cheshire, a high income, low welfare town, a high skills town, still has pockets of deprivation, pockets of unskilled people who are not getting opportunities within the town. So I would like to see a levelling up agenda within Warrington being part of our broader regional local industrial strategy.
Councillor Friend.
I'd like to concur with everything that Councillor Barr's just said. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
And no further comment from me, Chairman.
Councillor Hannon. Okay, so we'll move back to the agenda then, which I believe we are now at Steve Park again in regards to external funding.
Thank you, Chair. Again, last minute understudy, stepping again for Stephen. I'll step you through the report very quickly to give time for questions. If I could move to, you'll be familiar with some of the Regional Growth Fund and Growing Places funding that we've had across Warrington in recent years, but more recently, of course, the COVID crisis has brought into stark contrast the need for business support, as you've seen across a number of measures. Business grants in particular have been a key focus of the local authority, and in particular in the administration of those grants, speed has been of the essence. Getting that money out of the door and into the hands of business has been a real priority for the inward investment team in Warrington and of course the business rates team in the council. You'll see in the report at section 3.2 that there has been almost £39 million worth of funding that has been passported through the authority, subject to eligibility, and to some extent an element of discretion, which was proven to be the most useful, where we had some discretion where we could direct funding to those that needed most. When you add the business rates relief that's been injected into the local economy, that totals almost £80 million. It's never enough. We've seen the furlough scheme start to come to an end now. We are all anticipating increases in unemployment. There are sectors in Warrington that have gone from strength to strength, particularly those businesses that are supporting online retail and logistics. But it's no surprise that the hospitality sector, not just in Warrington but across the country, is facing its biggest battle ever. And we're seeing that even recently with the announcements of Cineworld, and indeed Odeon cinemas have made announcements today that they will be moving to screenings on weekends only. So continuing to be subject to pressure. One of the funds that we did bid into was the Towns Fund. Back in the final quarter of 2019, the government announced that there were 100 towns across the country that had been invited to bid for the Towns Fund. We didn't bid for that. We were selected, and that was an opportunity to bid for up to £25 million of government funding to meet specific criteria. We worked hard on that through the first quarter of this year, and then we entered lockdown in mid-March, and understandably council resources that were previously focusing on inward investments and attracting funding of the type that you see in this report were all of a sudden redirected to supporting vulnerable people across Warrington, those in shielding positions and in the management, supply and provision of PPE. Thankfully, we managed to get through that firefight, and some of the staff were then redirected back to their original posts. Stephen Fitzsimons himself actually was in control of much of the PPE distribution across the town. And we managed to get back focused on the town deal. We didn't think that it would survive government thinking. It did. Government confirmed in May that they were actively pursuing the town deal, and we re-engaged with colleagues in local cities and growth unit and MHCLG to pick that up again. What did happen was that we were invited to join one of three cohorts. Cohort 1 would have required the products of this exercise, being the town investment plan, to be submitted by the 31st of July of this year. Cohort 2 would have seen it submitted by the 31st of this month in October, and cohort 3 the 31st of March of next year. We were very much of the opinion that it's better to be inside an existing government programme than perhaps waiting until later in the year or perhaps even next year, when the world can have changed quite dramatically. So we put ourselves under some tremendous pressure. We submitted the town investment plan in July of this year. It contains 7 key projects, all of which are set out in section 3.5 of the report. Totals 26.56 million, which you will be aware is a smidgen above the 25 million, but that's just the totals of the projects, and rather than make them fit, we thought we would explain to government the true cost of these projects, and we wait to hear. It was when we submitted in July, we were expecting to hear in September. September came and has now gone, and we were told it was going to be mid-October. We're now told it will be the end of October when we will get to hear for the outcome of our bid. So despite the rush to get the thing submitted in July, we are still waiting on the government giving us the green light to move to the next stage. That next stage, by the way, will be the entering into a heads of terms with the government to agree an amount of funding to then proceed through to detailed business cases for each of these 7 projects. And that in itself could take up to 12 months. So it's a long-term piece of work. It's integral to the ongoing transformation of the town. We hear earlier of the levelling up agenda, something very sits very front and centre really to this town investment plan. It's identifying where we have sectors that are in desperate need of skilled resource, where we can really exploit the digitisation agenda, where we can exploit the shift that we've seen in modes of travel to more active-based travels and more modern methods of construction, trying to address emissions as we go. So it's a very exciting piece of work. It's disappointing that it's taken as long as it has done, but we have submitted a strong bid, and we expect to hear, as we say, in a few weeks' time. More recently still, we've had the announcement of what's called the Kickstart programme, which for some of us of a certain age will remember the Youth Opportunities Programme, the YTS, where in effect government paid employers to take on young people aged 18 to 24 and paid an amount of their wages. It was a success, I think, from memory. There are many people remember fondly the YTS days and the opportunities that it brought. This is not too dissimilar, and if an organisation, an employer was to agree to train a new member of staff aged 18 to 24 currently on benefits, then they would be in receipt of an additional £1,500 as well. You'll be pleased to hear, I hope, that Warrington and Co will be forming one of the organisations through which this funding can be channelled, because organisations tend to have to pay to apply for this individually. They have to be taking on 30 of these individuals, and of course that's quite a sizable amount, and beyond really the realms of an SME. An SME make up at least 80% of our economy, and so it's important that we have the likes of Warrington and Co that can act as an intermediary, and SMEs can come to Warrington and Co and benefit from this programme. We expect that to take off in the next 3 weeks. And with that, Chair, I'll hand over to any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Once again, Councillor Bate, any comments or questions?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, if I may, Chair. First of all, I know it's been said before, but it's worth recognising and thanking all the staff who were redeployed during the lockdown, who Steve Park just mentioned there. So thanks to all of them. And just in terms of the town investment plan, it's just really refreshing to see the diversity of schemes and projects involved in there. I think it cuts across demographics of the town, so something for all age groups. I think it works to the town's strengths, but also identifies those areas of growth such as digitisation agenda, and I think it really does support the economy in the broadest sense. So fantastic piece of work, and I hope it is fruitful in terms of the funding it receives. So thanks to Steve and all his colleagues for putting that together.
Councillor Buckley.
I just concur with that. Just thanks to Steve and all the hard work from his teams.
Councillor Barr.
Likewise, I was very pleased to see the town investment plan, and actually it meets a lot of the levelling up within the town aspirations which I mentioned earlier. My only slight concern about this is there's been a fair amount of public comment as to how the towns, or perhaps I should say how the constituencies where this money is being sent were chosen. I suppose we should consider ourselves fortunate that Warrington has been put on the list, and also I expressed some scepticism in the past when we've been bidding against far more deprived places for cash. So far we've had about £1 million out of the up to 25 million promised. I would like to sort of pay attention to the up to statement. Realistically, what proportion of the 25 million do you think Warrington is likely to be successful in attracting from the town's fund?
Thank you, Councillor Barr. I'd love to be able to say the whole 25. We simply don't know.
No. We deserve the 25. On the basis of the bid, we deserve the 25. So very well done. But it's obviously going to be some politics in this.
We do, and we wait with anticipation as to how much we actually get. Even the £1 million accelerated funding that we've been granted, which of course it has to be spent by March, and we've earmarked towards the delivery of the bus depot, which itself is then linked to the electrified fleet. We're not sure if that is in addition to the allocated 25 or within the 25. We're still awaiting feedback from government officials to clarify that point for us as well.
Very well done. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Friend.
Well, as with all funding bids, you just have to keep on trying and keep on trying, and it's a bit of a lottery, isn't it, really, in many ways, but I do appreciate the hard work and effort and the good bids that we do put in. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Just to concur with all that's been said, Chairman, obviously it's contingent on government delivering on their promises and coming forward with the cash to back up their pledges. I wait with bated breath. Thank you.
And Councillor Hannon.
And thanks, Chairman. Just like my compliments to all that's been said this evening. I always believe that Warrington has maintained and always punched above its weight, and it's still doing so. And I think that the rewards are coming back our way. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Mike. And again, reiterating what everyone said, commendations to the whole team to putting through all these bids and proposals, and hoping we get the funding that we deserve really for the work that's been put into it. Okay, well, with that, I think we've come to the end. So we've got our work programme. So ultimately, just to note the work programme coming forth into the new year. Kirsten, anything to add on those points, or anything that's needed mentioning?
No, everything's fine, thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I bid everyone a good evening, and thank you for your attendance. And stay safe and stay well, and certainly shop local as well as best we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tom, can I just thank you for getting this meeting organised, because I, as for one, been missing policy committees. I think that there's an awful lot of positive stuff to report tonight, and it's been a worthwhile meeting. Thank you very much indeed. Not the way I'd normally choose to hold my birthday, and I don't usually lose my temper on my birthday, but apologies for that. On that note, I'd like to thank you for chairing tonight's meeting. Cheers.
Happy birthday, Bob.
And
Thank you,
happy
Tom.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Bob. And thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.